add Trackhouse to the list of teams looking to expand their operation in 2022. At this point, forget about charters. Are there even enough spots in the field for all these new teams? How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. Several stories to get to, including a surprising soundbite from Justin Marks, owner of Trackhouse Racing. We will get to that and much more today, but first, this episode is sponsored by Wenzel's Farm. Wenzel's Farm is a premium provider of high-quality, handcrafted, small-batch meat snacks and products. Real meat for real life. No artificial flavors, no fillers, no corn syrup. They've got over 13 varieties of snack sticks. Beef with cheddar. Oh, now you're just showing off. And they've also launched a line of jerky products. Peppered beef flavored, teriyaki flavored, original beef of course. Shift your taste buds into high gear with the winning flavor of Wenzel's Farm Protein Pack Snack Sticks and Jerky. Wenzel's is the perfect pit stop snack to fuel you all the way across the finish line, and they have a special offer for fans of Out of the Groove. Use code FUEL at checkout for 20% off your order. That's right, wenzelsfarm.com. Use code FUEL, you'll get 20% off. They're delicious. I've tried almost all the flavors. I still gotta try the cheddar flavor. That's next. So be sure to take advantage of this offer. That's wenzelsfarm.com. Thank you to Wenzel's Farm for supporting Out of the Groove. We have plenty to talk about today. We'll get to silly season and the new developments around Trackhouse here in just a few minutes. But to begin this episode, we gotta talk about the Superstar Racing Experience. That's right, the SRX, or now the Camping World SRX, debuts this Saturday night at Stafford Motor Speedway, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS. Alan Bestwick leading the broadcast. Yesterday, the SRX confirmed the 12 drivers who will compete in this opening night of action. Here they are. No real surprises here. Tony Stewart, Bobby Labonte, Bill Elliott, 4-time Indy 500 champion Helio Castroneves, and many more. You'll notice Tony Kanaan is racing. Haley Deegan will drive that car a couple times later this summer, and Greg Biffle is racing on opening night in the number 69. They actually gave the Biff number 69. I can't believe it. Greg Biffle's a little childish. He has sort of like a high school freshman sense of humor. But if you followed him on Twitter for the last couple of years, he's made plenty of jokes regarding the number 69. I think it's hilarious that the SRX actually let him run that number. His car, the paint scheme's hideous. He's got the poop car out there. What, a brown? Ugh. Not even a cool looking brown like the UPS cars back in the day. Just a brown. Ooh, all right, okay. Either way, I'm extremely interested to see how this inaugural SRX event goes, from the race itself to the broadcast as well. CBS dipping their toe back into the motorsports world. Side note on that, the head of CBS Sports said yesterday that their sports lineup is completely full. They don't have any room for IndyCar or NASCAR coverage, at least for the foreseeable future. I know a lot of IndyCar fans were maybe a bit surprised to hear that. But I'm very interested to see how the whole event plays out. I will be watching it. We'll probably be talking about it some on Out of the Groove over the next several weeks. First SRX event ever. It's just a couple days away. Who's your pick? I'm going with Bobby Labonte just because I feel like he's the freshest right now. He's been racing modifieds this year at a lot of these similar style short tracks. I think Bobby Labonte is going to be in a good spot to win this opening event. But hey, don't count out the other NASCAR oval guys like even Michael Waltrip, Bill Elliott. What can they do? I think Helio Castroneves, IndyCar guy, will also be very competitive. But I think Tony Stewart, Bobby Labonte, maybe Greg Biffle. I don't know how many races he's going to run. Castroneves as well, Andre, maybe a few of those guys. I think those are your championship contenders if you ask me. I'm picking Bobby Labonte this weekend. Let me know who you guys got down in the comments. And also let me know if you're going to be watching. I'm just curious to see how many of you guys are planning to tune in to the SRX this summer. Next up, before we talk about Trackhouse, some other smaller scale silly season news. Remember Raphael Lessard got taken out of the 24 truck for GMS a few weeks ago because sponsorship money dried up? Well, GMS announced today that young Jack Wood will be the new driver of the 24 beginning at Nashville Superspeedway next weekend. 20-year-old driver, he's made some ARCA starts this year for GMS. Not a whole lot of experience. He does have 2 previous Truck Series starts this season, so he's not completely new at this, but he's still getting his feet underneath him. We'll see how he does this year. Again, he doesn't have a whole lot of experience on his NASCAR resume at this point, or ARCA East or West resume at this point, so we'll see how he does this year. We'll see how he develops, but just wanted to mention that real quick. Now, let's talk silly season, specifically Trackhouse. Trackhouse has been one of the most interesting teams to watch all season long. They're a brand new team with Justin Marks, a racer himself, as the primary owner. Then just as the season was getting started, Pitbull was announced as a co-owner, as an investor in the team. Daniel Suarez is their driver, trying to find a more permanent home in the Cup Series. Finally, expectations for that team this year I think were pretty low. I think everyone expected them to run 25th most weeks, and maybe at like the super speedways make some noise, but nobody really expected much from Trackhouse in their first season. But because they have that RCR alliance and Chevrolet has been very competitive across the board this year, we've seen Trackhouse contend a couple of times this year. Yes, they're outside the top 20 in points. They've still had a lot of technical difficulties that have cost them decent finishes, but when they've finished races, they've led laps and almost won, like at Bristol Dirt. They had a top 10 run going at Sonoma this weekend until the last lap shenanigans with Michael McDowell. This team has been inconsistent for sure this year, but their best moments have been surprisingly competitive this year. So Trackhouse has been a very enjoyable team to watch. And during a guest appearance on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio Channel 90 yesterday, Justin Marks talked about the team's optimistic future.
Being able to scale the operations is of utmost importance. I mean, we're actively involved right now in identifying opportunities for expansion in 22. A two-car team in 2022 is very much in the picture and something that we're working hard on right now.
This is the first the public has heard of Trackhouse Racing's plans to open a second team next year, or at least that's what they're hoping to do. It sounds like nothing is set in stone just yet, but add them to the list of teams looking to expand. 2311 Racing, another new team this year, has already said numerous times that they plan to expand operations as soon as next year. They want to be a two-car team, maybe a 3 or 4-car team down the line as soon as possible. Not to mention Colleague Racing, one of the most competitive teams in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. They've said that they plan on running at least one full-time Cup Series ride in 2022, expanding their overall NASCAR operation. And Dale Earnhardt Jr. has still not shut the door on Junior Motorsports possibly bringing their operation to the Cup Series next year. Remember, a few weeks ago, he said it's now or never on if his team is ever going to go Cup Series racing. I mean, I'm not guaranteeing that all of those teams I just mentioned are going to field full-time Cup Series efforts next season, but at least a couple of them probably will. I'm confident 2311 Racing is going to get a second car started. They have plenty of sponsorship, with or without a charter. I think they can make the business work. Colleague sounds pretty dead set on running a full-time Cup Series team. They're already running a part-time schedule this year with AJ Allmendinger and Kaz Grala primarily splitting duties. I think Colleague will field at least one Cup Series ride next year full-time. But Junior Motorsports, that's a little iffier. Trackhouse, because this revelation is brand new, I don't really know what to think. Now, in that clip from Justin Marks, no specific mention of any driver that they're looking at to fill that seat, no mention as to what car number they might go with. So it still sounds like fielding a second Cup Series ride next year is in the early developmental stages. But it does sound like development has gone far enough that they're comfortable reaching out to championship caliber drivers about this opportunity. Here's what Kurt Busch said yesterday as well, speaking on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio about his 2022 plans. Listen to the teams he name drops.
Talks are going to start here at Ganassi first. I respect Chip and I respect this team, but yes, other teams are calling. 2311, Trackhouse. There's all kinds of options everywhere.
Kurt Busch admits right there that not only his 2311 Racing, which we already kind of knew, The Athletic reported a couple weeks ago, but also Trackhouse has reached out to him about possibly driving for their team next season. Kurt Busch says right there that he's going to talk to Chip Ganassi, his current team owner, before he talks to anybody else. But as I mentioned, it's been reported that he is the leading candidate for the second 2311 racing car. We talked about all of that last week. But he's on Trackhouse's radar, and it sounds like Trackhouse is on his radar. Perhaps Trackhouse makes him an offer he just cannot refuse. Kurt Busch, I think no matter what team he goes to next year, even if he stays at Chip Ganassi, he's going to be a huge net positive for whatever team he joins. He's going to help out whatever young driver he joins in that organization. He's going to boost the overall competition of that team. Kurt Busch, yes, he's in his early 40s now. It's been 16, 17 years since he won a NASCAR championship, but he's still a great driver, a veteran driver who has a ton of experience and a ton of knowledge to bring to the table. He will make any team he goes to better next season. So I can understand why Trackhouse would want to make an offer, want to slide something underneath the door and say, hey, take a look at what we got, Kurt. And it might be an attractive offer to Kurt Busch. Trackhouse has that RCR alliance. They're a Chevy team, and as we talked about yesterday, Chevrolet's in a pretty dang good spot right now. Ever since the end of last season, when ECR and Hendrick engines combined their resources, combined their research to develop one super Chevrolet engine, it seems pretty clear that the Chevys are the cars to beat, from Chase Elliott's championship run late last year's season to Kyle Larson, Hendrick Motorsports, and even RCR's impressive performance to begin this year. And I do think that's played a factor in Trackhouse's surprisingly good runs this year. So if you're Kurt Busch, maybe Chevrolet has more to offer at this point than even a Toyota factory team like 2311. We'll wait and see on that. It still sounds likely that Kurt Busch is favoring 2311 Racing, chance to work alongside his brother Kyle and the rest of Joe Gibbs Racing pretty closely. I think that's a pretty enticing offer. Plus the funding that 2311 has, that's also very inviting. And Michael Jordan. I mean, shoot, I'd love to work for Michael Jordan. It'd be intimidating, but that would be cool. But really quick, I want to talk about the charter system and the field size, because all those teams I just listed, again, I don't think all of them are going to field Cup Series, full-time Cup Series teams next year. Like, I'm skeptical Junior Motorsports goes full-time Cup racing next year. They might, but I'm skeptical. But say Trackhouse does open a second team, and say 2311 gets a second team, and Colleague opens at least one team. They might even open two teams. Colleague has said they don't need a charter to run next year. 2311 has said they don't need a charter to run next year. Don't know about Trackhouse, but it sounds like they might be willing to run without a charter next year. What if Junior Motorsports joins the Cup Series without a charter? All of a sudden, it doesn't look like there are enough spots in the field for all these teams. Because remember, 36 spots are reserved for the 36 chartered teams, which means, yes, 4 Rick Ware cars will be locked in every week the way things stand currently, which leaves only 4 open slots at the end of the field for non-chartered teams. And I've just rattled off like 5 or 6 teams that may compete next year. 1 Trackhouse, 1 2311, potentially 2 Colleague cars, Junior Motorsports, and remember that JTG Doherty, the 37 car is not a charter team. If they still race next year, that's a 6th. MBM Motorsports, I mean, there comes a point where you're gonna have 7, 8 cars most weeks contending for only 4 spots. I don't see Dale Jr. taking that risk. I don't really see Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan taking that risk, or any of those teams I really just mentioned, risking having one of their drivers miss the field from time to time. Now maybe 2311 buys or leases a charter from someone. Maybe Trackhouse is able to get a charter. So maybe we're only talking about 2 or 3 non-chartered teams next season, and then, okay, they'll fit within the scale of that 40 car field size, but we just don't know at this point. Either way, the fields are looking like they're going to be more packed next year, the first year of the next gen car. I've seen a lot of comments from people saying, oh, they should just add 4 more charters, or they should go back to 43 cars in the field. NASCAR is not doing that, and they can't do that. First off, NASCAR is not able to make any major changes to the charter system until at least 2024, it sounds like. There's existing agreements in place between NASCAR and the teams. It's going to be very, very difficult for NASCAR to overhaul much any of that in the meantime. So the charter system is here to stay, at least for the next several years. Now, as far as expanding the field size to 43, I don't think NASCAR is going to do that either, because if you expand the field size to 43, there's 3 more spots that you got to allocate purse money to. And if you are giving 3 extra spots in the field some purse money, you're taking little bits of that purse money away from every other finishing position. And so the teams that have invested in charters, that have already kind of set their budgets expecting a certain amount of purse money for finishing 1st or 5th or 25th, all of a sudden they're all going to get a tiny bit less, and that money is all going to go towards 41st through 43rd. I don't see NASCAR restructuring that anytime soon. NASCAR right now really wants to keep those 36 chartered teams happy, and so anything that takes even a little bit of money away from them and goes towards, non-chartered teams, at this point NASCAR's made clear they're not interested in pursuing. Assuming the charter system stays intact for many years to come, the only way more charters will be added is if a new manufacturer or 2 joins the sport. And as far as expanding the field size, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years down the line, it will make sense for them to go back to 43 cars, but I don't see it happening next year or anytime in the immediate future. This past offseason, NASCAR literally told the non-charter teams, you will get less purse money this year. We're giving more of it to the charter teams. They literally made that announcement like 5 months ago, so I don't see them completely reversing themselves from one year to the next. NASCAR wants to keep the charter teams happy because those are the teams that invested millions in those charters. So if those teams invested millions, NASCAR wants to make sure they make their money back and they stay happy. And so we keep the Penske's, the Joe Gibbs, the Hendricks happy. We keep those competitive rides in the sport. That's where NASCAR's head is at, I believe. So we're not going to see 43 car fields next year, no matter how many teams say they want to try to run full time. We're not going to see the 36 charters change, at least for a couple more years. That's just the nature of it at this point. But let me know who you guys think should get that second Trackhouse ride, assuming it comes to fruition. They may be going after Kurt Busch. I don't think they're gonna land Kurt Busch. My guess is they'll get someone kind of within the RCR, the Chevrolet development system, maybe a Kaz Agrala, maybe a Justin Haley. I think both those drivers are high on Colleague Racing's list of drivers, or even Chip Ganassi. Say Kurt Busch leaves Chip Ganassi, I think someone over there is gonna want a Justin Haley or maybe even a Kaz Agrala. So I think there's gonna be a few teams competing for those Chevy, young Chevy drivers, but maybe Justin Marks will surprise us and go with a veteran. Matt DiBenedetto's future is still uncertain in that 21 car. Maybe Matt DiBenedetto gets a shot in a Chevrolet. We'll just have to wait and see. Silly season, though, is heating up. It was a few weeks ago that I said this year's silly season seemed kind of boring. I have done nothing but eat those words ever since, because every week there are new teams being announced, new rumors constantly. I could not have been more wrong. We'll see how things shake out this summer. Thank you all for watching this episode. That is all I've got. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR day in, day out, rumors, predictions, silly season, all that great stuff and more. A huge thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters as well. I couldn't do this show each week without your tremendous support. We'll be back this weekend. A lot of racing action from Xfinity trucks on Saturday, the SRX Saturday night, and of course the All-Star race Sunday afternoon. Going to be a busy weekend. We'll have a lot to talk about, I'm sure. Have a fantastic rest of your week. I will see you again very, very soon.